Have you ever had someone drift out of your life, and you thought, I'll reach out tomorrow, but that tomorrow never came? It's a strange thing, the way time slips by. One day, you're sharing stories over coffee with someone who feels like family. The next months or even years pass, and all you're left with is a name in your phone and a little voice in your head whispering, why didn't you just call? That voice has been in my head for a while now. Every morning, as I sip my coffee and look out the kitchen window, I think of my old friend Henry. He wasn't my best friend, not exactly, but he was steady, solid, the kind of person who showed up to help move a heavy table without making a fuss, the kind who remembered your dog's name even if you hadn't spoken in months. And the truth is, I meant to call him back. I really did. At this stage in life, we've seen so much. We've been through heartbreak and joy, births and funerals, wars and weddings. And still, some of the hardest things to face aren't the big events. They're the quiet regrets, the moments we didn't take, but something always got in the way. A doctor's appointment, a visit from the grandkids, a nap that stretched longer than I'd planned. I'd glance at my phone and think, tomorrow. I'll call Henry tomorrow. Only, tomorrow came and went. And now, well, now it's too late. It's funny, isn't it? This story isn't meant to make you sad, even now. Maybe especially now. We've lived long enough to know that true friendship isn't about how often you talk or what you can do for each other. It's about how someone makes you feel safe, understood, seen. I'm not here to stir up old wounds or make you feel guilty about things left unsaid. That's not the point. But over time, something shifted. A few shared laughs, a couple of long lunch breaks, and suddenly he was part of my life. The kind of part you don't even notice until it's gone. I'm sharing this because I believe deep down that connection still matters. Henry and I met through work decades ago. We weren't close at first, just two guys sharing an office printer and complaining about the coffee. He wasn't flashy, never the center of attention. He didn't have a loud laugh or big stories, but he was loyal, kind, thoughtful in the way that mattered. When my wife got sick, he didn't send a text, he showed up with dinner. I'd think about him often, but the longer I waited to reach out, the harder it became. I'd worried the number had changed, or that too much time had passed. I told myself I didn't want to make it awkward. When I retired, he gave me a photo of the office from the day we started working together, with a little note tucked inside that read, "Here's 2 slow mornings and fewer emails." I still have that note. It's in my desk drawer, folded and worn from being opened too many times. After retirement, we kept in touch for a while. A lunch here, a phone call there, but life crept in, like it always does. It's like his absence is part of my routine, a soft ache, not sharp but there. And strangely, that ache reminds me of what matters. It nudges me to be better, even now. We tell ourselves that old friends have moved on, or that maybe we've lost the thread. We think, what's the point of reaching out now? Or if they wanted to talk, they'd call me. That we're too busy, or too tired, or that we've become bad at keeping in touch. But under all of that is usually one simple thing: fear. But really, I was just procrastinating. And you know how that goes. It's about not waiting. Then, one morning, I got the call. It wasn't tragic, not in the way headlines are tragic. Just a simple, quiet update from a mutual friend. People who are still here, still within reach, still waiting for that call. But that doesn't mean the effort wasn't worth it. Henry had passed away, peacefully, in his sleep. Maybe you'll see a name you haven't thought about in a while, and maybe you'll give them a call. I sat down in my chair and didn't move for a long while. I kept thinking about how often I'd thought of him, how I'd meant to call, how I could still hear his laugh when something ridiculous happened, and how I'd always think Henry would have gotten a kick out of this. And now, every morning, I still think of him. It reminds me that connection isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. I know a lot of us reach this point in life and start to pull back, but maybe they're thinking the exact same thing. Maybe they're sitting with their coffee, thinking about you. We tell ourselves stories to protect our hearts, fear that the other person won't remember us the same way we remember them, fear that too much time has passed. But here's what I've learned. It hasn't. It's never too late to reach out. Not every message will be answered. Not every friend will pick up where you left off. So maybe today, after this video, you'll scroll through your phone. Because, while I think of Henry every morning, I've also learned something else. I still have other people in my life, and if there's one thing I'd do differently, it's this: I wouldn't wait. The hardest part of losing someone you never properly said goodbye to is that there's no clean ending, no last laugh, no final take care, no story tied up with a nice bow. Just silence, a quiet space where a conversation should have been. And that silence, it teaches you things. Not all at once. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes years, but eventually it starts whispering truths you didn't want to hear. One of the first things it taught me was that procrastination isn't just about putting off chores or skipping a walk. It can be a quiet thief. Not the kind that rushes in and makes a scene, but the kind that gently steals what matters when you're not paying attention. A phone call, a chance to say, "Hey, I miss you," a moment to say, "Thank you." I think back to all the small nudges I ignored. You know the ones I'm talking about. The little voice that says, "You should give them a call," or "You haven't talked to her in a while. Send her a message." We get those nudges more often than we realize. We just brush them off. Some I hadn't spoken to since the early 80s. Some I'd last seen at retirement parties, weddings, old church pot. You'd be surprised how many names started coming to mind. People who mattered to me more than I realized at the time. I'll do it later. Well, I'll be damned. Is this who I think it is? Even if only in passing. Even if they never say it out loud. I don't want to bother them. Enough to shake off the dust. Enough to feel like I hadn't let another connection turn into a memory. They probably don't even think about me. Some are loose and frayed, others still strong, but all of them means something. It's not realistic. But maybe there's one person. Sure, life changes. People move. Priorities shift. And we don't see each other like we used to. But the bonds we've built, they don't just vanish. They wait quietly for us to remember them. He told me he'd been thinking about calling me too. Said he didn't know why he hadn't, just that the days kept slipping past. But the truth is, if someone ever made you feel cared for even, once, they probably do think about you. After Henry passed, I started thinking about all the other people I hadn't talked to in years. I was nervous, honestly nervous, like I was about to ask someone out on a date. What if it was awkward? What if he didn't remember me? And one morning I picked up the phone. It wasn't easy at first. The number I dialed was for a guy named Pete. We worked together during our first jobs, back when we were still wearing wide ties and carrying briefcases. I hadn't heard from him in almost 15 years. My hand hovered over the call button for a full 5 minutes, but I hit call anyway. It rang 3 times, then 4. I nearly hung up. Then he answered, and his voice older, a little rougher, but still him, just said, I laughed. He laughed, and just like that, the years melted away. We didn't talk long, maybe 20 minutes, but it was enough. And you know what surprised me most? That conversation sparked something. It reminded me that we're not as alone as we sometimes believe. We all carry these invisible threads, connecting us to people we haven't spoken to in years. Now, I'm not saying you have to reconnect with everyone from your high school class, or throw a dinner party for every old coworker. You ever had just one? Someone who made you laugh, someone who helped you through a hard time, someone you still think about every now and then, maybe during your morning coffee, maybe when you hear an old song, or when a certain smell hits you and brings you right back. A simple, "Hey, I was thinking about you" is enough. Really, it is. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to have a reason. And even if they don't answer, if they're not around anymore, or the number's out of service, just trying still matters. And pains, making it through the week. Did we forget to look back at the people who shaped us? A reminder to stop waiting, to make that call, to say the thing, because that small act, that reaching out, that moment of intention, it changes you. It reminds you that you still care, that you are still capable of love, of forgiveness, of kindness. I think we forget that. Sometimes, we spend so much time focused on what's ahead, doctor's appointments. Aches Henry shaped me in ways I didn't understand until he was gone. And now, every time I think of him, I take it as a gentle nudge, because I'll tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. The weight of regret is heavier than the weight of a 10-minute conversation. There's still time to reconnect. There's still time to laugh with someone you've missed. There's still time to remind someone, you mattered to me. You still do. I think sometimes we underestimate the power of a simple hello. We tell ourselves it needs to be this big, meaningful conversation, like we've got to unpack all the years, all the silence, all the missed birthdays and unanswered letters. But it doesn't. It really doesn't. They were close. The two of them, quilting partners, tea drinkers, deep chatter types. After the funeral, we just lost touch. So, one evening, heart racing. Just a little I sent that message. Not because we stopped caring, but because grief has a way of folding everything into silence. Reconnection starts with one word. Hello, or maybe even just, hey, I was thinking about you. That's what I sent in a message to Claire. She and I hadn't spoken since my wife passed. We assume we've passed the point where something new can begin. But every phone call you make, every person you reach out to, that's still growth. That's still love in motion. Claire was the first person my wife ever called a real friend. I owed her more than silence. We ended up talking for nearly an hour, laughing through tears, remembering old stories neither of us realized the other still held on to. And for those, I light a little candle in my heart and talk to them in my head, sometimes out loud. I sit in the garden or in the quiet of the evening, and I say the things I didn't say when I had the chance. She replied in 10 minutes. She told me she thought about calling me so many times, but didn't know what to say. That she missed my wife every day. That she missed me too. That call didn't erase the years. It didn't solve everything. But it gave both of us something we hadn't realized. We needed a thread back to who we were, to a part of life that still mattered. You see, the thing about growing older is this. We don't always realize we're still building things. Friendships, moments, legacies. If anything, we matter more, because we've lived long enough to understand the cost of holding back, of letting silence take the place of connection. We don't stop mattering just because we've stopped working, or the kids are grown, or the calendar pages seem to flip faster than they used to. I don't wallow in what I didn't do. I use it as a spark, a reason to reach out to someone else, because I've learned that the best way to honor someone you've lost is to love someone you still have. So now, every time I think of Henry, I let it move me forward, not hold me back. And I know, believe me, I know it's not always easy. Some people are gone for good, and all we have left is memory. I miss you. I wish I had said thank you. You mattered to me more than you knew. It helps. It really does. And it reminds me to stop holding back with the ones who are still here. The neighbor who always waves. The old coworker who pops up in my dreams. Not always a call, sometimes it's just a letter, a voice message, even an email. The point is the effort. It's like watering a garden that looked dry, only to find that the roots were still alive. Some friendships don't need much to bloom again, just a little light. The friend I've been meaning to call for 3 birthdays now. I've made it a habit. Every Sunday evening, I reach out to someone, even just to say, I thought of you today, because that call, that message, it was also for me, a reminder that I still care, that my heart is still open. And the ones that don't bloom, that's okay too. They just bruise a little easier, but they also grow stronger, and more grateful, and more generous. Just one. The first one who comes to mind when I say the words, the friend you never called back. Sometimes the other person doesn't answer. Sometimes the silence continues. But that's no longer a reason for me to stop trying. Light that little candle in your heart. Say their name out loud. I remind myself that love doesn't end when a person's gone, and regret doesn't have to be the final word. Speak to them like they're still listening, because maybe, in some way, they are. The truth is, our hearts don't close with age. You don't need a long speech, just a little courage and a bit of kindness. If you're listening right now, maybe with your morning tea, or during your walk, or as you settle in before bed, I want you to pause and think of one person. What would it feel like to reach out? You don't need a big reason, and if that person is no longer with us, think of them anyway. That's what I do every morning with Henry. He may not answer, but in remembering him, I answer myself. You still have time to reconnect, time to forgive, time to remember, and time to remind someone out there, you still matter to me. So if this brought someone to mind, don't wait. Reach out. Say the thing. Make the call. And if this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of an old friend or stirred something in your heart, consider sharing your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear about the people who've touched your life. We've still got time, and we're in this together. And if you'd like more quiet reflections, gentle stories, and reminders that it's never too late to care, go ahead and subscribe. Here's to connection, and to the ones we still carry with us every morning.